It's time for our discussion segment on the show this morning. And then today we're going to be talking about something that I'm sure will interest every Nigerian because it's regarding our leaders and the governors, and we know the whole drama between the governors and the EFCC. Now, when it is always expected that other governors would be interested in the ongoing cat and mouse hide and seek charade between the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, over embezzlement of Kogi State funds, what we did not know was that as many as 15 other governors would join him in fighting the EFCC. So it's interesting that for 20 years ago, no governor realized the legal illegitimacy of the EFCC since it was established in 2004, except these 16 governors. Bello and the governors joining his case think they have a legal basis and they are challenging the legality of the EFCC. Now, according to them, the EFCC did not follow the provision of Section 12 of the amended 1999 Constitution, which requires the concurrence of majority of the state houses of assembly for the establishment of a treaty. The question is whether the EFCC, is indeed a threat to them and all of that. But definitely we'll be talking about all of this on the show this morning. Now, we know that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has been a pivotal institution in Nigerians' fight against corruption since its establishment in 2004. Now, over time, we've seen the EFCC go after governors like James Ibori, Joshua Dari, Ojos Okalu, Ayo Fayoshe. We've seen the drama they had with Rochas Okorocha. We've seen the current one with the current one currently now with the Kogi State governor. They actually go after governors and they convict some they sweep it under the carpet, some we don't hear anything about it. There's a lot going on, and these governors are coming out now to challenge the EFCC, saying that there's a flaw somewhere in the legality of the establishment. Let us look at you and probably declare you null and void. And if this case is being taken to court and it favors them, there's a tendency the EFCC and its cases over time will be null and void. But I won't be having this conversation alone. I'm going to be having, joining us via Zoom from Adamawa is Sunday Amos. He's an anti-corruption campaigner who will be joining us on the show this morning via Zoom all the way from Adamawa. And we're going to be talking about the EFCC, the governors, and the legality against surrounding what it is they are doing at the moment. Now we have Sunday Amos. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning to you.
Good morning. It's good to have you with us here in the studio.
Thank you. Same here.
Oh, via Zoom rather. So as one who is an anti-corruption campaigner, what is your thought on these 16 governors dragging the EFCC to court to contend its legality?
Well, it's an interesting development, and it has been said that if the police, for example, or law enforcement are devising new ways to catch armed robbers or thieves, the thieves also will be devising new ways to escape being caught by law enforcement. And there is an adage in Hausa that says, "Mbaka iya kama barao ze kamaka," which simply means if you don't know how to catch a thief, the thief will turn around and catch you. And what we are seeing is a very interesting scenario where state governors, in order to evade the long arm of the law, have discovered what lawyers call a lacuna, a loophole in our statutes, in our laws. Here in particular, the laws establishing the EFCC, and they are now challenging it so that they can bring down a very serious anti-corruption institution. It has been said that when you fight corruption, corruption will fight back. So I see this as an attempt by very corrupt governors to fight back a very critical institution in our nation. And it will be interesting to see how this whole game pans out in our judiciary that has become very suspect now, that panders towards the highest bidder. So the whole scenario is very interesting. Especially when you bring again into question the activities of the EFCC itself in terms of going after only those who are opponents of government. How the EFCC chairmen are appointed and how the EFCC cannot go after your principal, he who pays the piper does not allow you to go after. You do remember some time ago that whoever joins the ruling party is protected. So when you have a situation where there is selective application of the law by EFCC, it brings into question, and it's not surprising. Therefore, you have this gang up by governors to challenge the legality or the constitutionality of the establishment of the EFCC itself. So when you look at this whole scenario, it doesn't give one any joy that in a country like Nigeria, and EFCC, after being in office first since 2002 and then the reenactment of the law in 2004, we're now having this. So it will be really interesting to find out how the whole thing pans out.
All right. I'm glad you spoke about, you touched a bit on the effectiveness of the EFCC, being that the activities are being questioned slightly by Nigerians. Are you people really fighting corruption, or you're fighting, like you said, who plays the piper, or who pays the piper dictates the tune? Now, in your thoughts, how effective has the EFCC been over time when it comes to the fight against corruption and going after high-profile individuals like governors? Because like the Nigerians are complaining of transparency, do you agree with that?
I mean, honestly, EFCC has not been very effective. If anything, EFCC has only been very effective at media campaigns, fighting people on the pages of newspapers and on the screens of TV. Of course, yes, some high-profile individuals like Tafa Balogun, Darie, and a few others have been convicted. But when you consider the number of those who have been convicted and the extremely large number of those who have gone scot-free, you will know that EFCC has done less than nothing in the fight against corruption. And in fact, in the fight against corruption, for those of us who have been in the anti-corruption business for quite some time, it is not just arresting and prosecuting individuals that is fighting corruption. Plugging the loopholes to prevent the fight against corruption itself in the first place. There are many components of the fight against corruption that has been neglected. And we are highlighting or focusing on individuals. How many more have gone scot-free when you compare to those who have actually been prosecuted and convicted? And in fact, what is the punishment itself? So the application by EFCC and, okay, let me give you a very quick example. Look at in the days of Ibrahim Magu, somebody whom the National Assembly rejected 3 times, rejected his appointment as chairman 3 solid times.
Mr. Sunday, are you there?
DSS wrote a report against him, and yet Buhari insisted on returning him as chairman of EFCC. No wonder he was a...
All right, it seems we have a little network glitch there.
I apologize. So even Bauer himself, at the end, he was a fiasco, gathering money, flying around, and so on and so forth. So the manner in which our chairmen have been appointed has affected the efficacy of the EFCC. I saw a cartoon in one newspaper where Buhari was dragging one person he shot, and some people were hiding in their huts, and there is a sign written, "When I see the broom, I will pass over you." Obviously, from the biblical quotation, "When I see the blood, I will pass over you," meaning that anybody who joins the broom party, anybody who joins APC is protected. So the manner of appointment of EFCC chairman, my sister, and the activities of the EFCC leaves much to be desired. As far as I am concerned, the achievements of the EFCC have been very, very poor over the years.
Would you say this has put them in a dangerous position and giving these governors an upper hand in the suits that they are supposedly filing against them?
Frankly, I'm not surprised that it has gotten to this. Because by the time you abandon your constitutional mandate and you're going after enemies of the incumbent administration, or even when you abandon big corruption cases and you're going after people who are spraying money at birthday parties, I mean, that was the height of joblessness. as if you don't have work to do. You are in these difficult times, the little opportunity that Nigerians have to show happiness and appreciate neighbors and friends, and you are leaving your main work and all the governors, former governors who have stolen billions. You are going after people who are spraying money at parties. You know that EFCC has lost focus. So I'm not surprised that corrupt people have now identified loopholes and they are going after the legitimacy of the body in entirety. I'm not surprised.
So what does it say about our fight against corruption in Nigeria? Do we actually have a body that actually fights corruption in Nigeria without political interference?
Without any equivocation, I want to say we do not. We do not have any serious body fighting against corruption in Nigeria. The EFCC is what it is. The ICPC is comatose. The Code of Conduct Bureau, they are all controlled by politicians. None of them is independent. None of them is independent. All of them are after opponents of the administration. Look at the pioneer chairman of EFCC, Nuhu Ribadu. He is now working under a person he charged under corruption. So if Nuhu Ribadu, with all the wonderful work it has been claimed that he did, is now serving under this kind of administration, so you really wonder where we're going. But in summary, Nigeria is not serious about fighting corruption. This administration is not serious about fighting corruption. We do not have an independent anti-corruption body that is fighting corruption. And worst of all, as far as I am concerned, the greatest loss in the fight against corruption is the loss of public support. And the reason behind this is because our politicians have weaponized poverty, have subjected the people to the kind of poverty that every day they wake up, they only think about what do I eat, what do I drink, where do I sleep, how do I pay my children's school fees. And as long as our people, that their minds have been subjected to these basic survival realities, nobody will think about corruption. Nobody will, and anyhow I can survive, I don't mind how to survive. So anybody that comes and gives them 1,000, 5,000, no matter how he steals, will be hailed as a hero in my community. So the entire country, nobody is thinking about honesty. Nobody is thinking about truth in governance. From the executive to the legislature to the judiciary, we now have a three-arms zone of corruption perfected. So the entire country has been under siege by corruption itself. And there is no body that is independent, no institution that is independent until and unless we get to a situation where we have an institution where it is not the president who appoints, but it is the National Assembly who appoints subject to this and subject to that, and the removal of that chairman must also follow the same process before a chairman is removed, and whose funding is directly from the National Assembly, not subject to anybody. Unless we get to that stage, unless we copy these good things from what is happening in countries around the world where anti-corruption is working, in China, in Singapore, in Malaysia. When we see these countries or these Scandinavian countries who are always the highest in Transparency International's annual corruption perceptions index, we must go to such countries that are always clean as far as transparency and accountability are concerned and learn from them. How is it that your own system is working and our own system is not working? But a situation where you report a thief to an armed robber and you expect something to happen, we are just joking. Nigeria is just joking. We are not serious about corruption in my system.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Sunday. Now, there was a coalition of CSOs came together, to talk about the suits challenging the legality of the governor's suit challenging the EFCC. This report was done by our correspondent, Shafi Suleiman. Now, I'd love you to take a look at it so we'd have a further conversation on it. Let's take a look at the report.
16 governors recently approached Nigeria's apex court to challenge the existence of the nation's anti-corruption body, the EFCC. They asked the court to stop the agency from investigating and prosecuting them on allegations bordering public finances. However, in a swift reaction, civil society groups working to fight corruption and ensure good governance came together to push back the governor's gang-up, describing it as a deliberate attempt to legitimize corruption and undermine the commonwealth of the citizens.
The action of these 16 governors and their silent collaborators because even the other governors have not come out openly to say that we disassociated ourselves with these 16 governors. So which means that they are doing solidarity. And if they are not doing solidarity, we challenge them, let them come out to disassociate themselves from these 16 governors that are trying to make or legitimize looting, corruption, and all sorts of irresponsible behavior, financial recklessness in their state.
Weakening or abolishing any of these anti-corruption agencies will significantly erode Nigeria's democratic gains, encourage impunity, and discourage foreign investment, as investors rely on strong institutions to ensure a fair business environment.
The coalition is also worried over attempts by subnational leaders to undermine the Supreme Court judgment on local government financial autonomy, just as they condemned votes allocation and leadership selection during the recent local government elections in some states.
The financial autonomy of our local government councils is non-negotiable. It is a constitutional provision that must be respected by all tiers of government. We stand united in condemning any action by state governors that undermines this autonomy and call for strict adherence to the rule of law.
We call on the federal government, the National Assembly, and other relevant anti-corruption agencies to institute and enforce appropriate sanctions against any government official at the state level who continues to flout financial autonomy of local governments.
While they call for increased oversight in the utilization of public resources, especially at the subnational level, the coalition also wants Nigerians to join them in pushing back the dangerous narrative aimed at silencing the anti-corruption fight in the country.
All right, thank you there for that report. Now back to you. We still have with us Sunday Amos, an anti-corruption campaigner. Looking at the reports, we see that this case filed against the EFCC, came after they went after Yahaya Bello for embezzlement and fraud, of public funds. Now, most of these governors are at the tail end of their second term. So there's a tendency they're not coming back. Would you say this is coming out of fear that the EFCC will also come after them, knowing that they are guilty of something? And what are their case? Does it have a legal grounding at this point in time?
Well, definitely, if I have not scrutinized very well the EFCC Act, but from what I have read on the pages of the media, they have referred to very serious details. Particularly that the act was not subjected to referendum majority of state houses of assembly and so on and so forth. So definitely before 16 governors can go to the Supreme Court, they must have done their homework a lot to identify these loopholes in the EFCC Act of 2004. So definitely there is a legal basis for whatever it is they have done, and it is left to the judiciary to see how they will resolve this matter. Unfortunately, you know what our judiciary has become. It has become the last hope of the corrupt man. It used to be the last hope of the common man. Then it became the lost hope of the common man. Then the judiciary has become the last hope of the corrupt man. So it is the corrupt man who is now going to court. And when somebody is always saying go to court, is because he knows what he has kept there in the court. These are governors who control the resources of their states. There is no amount of money they cannot pay to these judges. There is no amount of money they cannot pay to hire the best SANs in the country. And if the federal government does not match them naira for naira, at the end of the day, with what we are seeing with our judiciary, these 16 governors will carry the day. Oh. And these other governors that the CSOs are asking that they should come out and dissociate themselves will not dissociate themselves. And frankly, if I were a governor, a sitting governor, and my tenure is about to end, there is really nothing to be afraid of with the court, with the EFCC, the way it is. Plea bargain is there. And my definition of plea bargain always is steal plenty, give back a little, and enjoy the rest of the plenty that you have. This is what our judiciary has turned our plea bargain into. So there are former governors. First and foremost, the cases will take endless years in court to the point that These people will enjoy their loot and even die without these cases being expended in the court. So if you steal plenty, hire the best SANs, make sure you delay the proceedings of the court for as long as you can, bribe the judges, do all those games that they play in the judiciary, and you go scot-free. That is the image of the judiciary we have currently.
Right,
so I don't know what they're afraid of. Maybe they don't want to spend those monies on lawyers, on judges, and so on and so forth. But frankly, it is corruption having a field day in the country that we can even be talking about governors challenging the establishment of the EFCC Act. If they were interested in anti-corruption, truly, they would have been talking about amending provisions of the EFCC that have issues so that we can strengthen the anti-corruption institution. But I'm afraid that even while I appreciate Rafsanjani and his colleagues for that press conference, it is not a matter of press conference. It is not a matter of calling the media. It is about going to court. And once the courts make a pronouncement, it stands.
Okay. So
and at this stage, we will see how what the judiciary will do in this particular scenario.
All right. Are you saying that there's a tendency, you are not confident in the judiciary if this case between the governors and the EFCC go to court? You're not confident that the judiciary, you're not confident, rather, like you said, hire the best stance. You're not confident in the stance of the judiciary. But what does this mean? Say, if the plaintiffs that are seeking this fight against the EFCC, wanting to declare it illegal, what they want is for it to be declared illegal, and with that, the actions of the EFCC are null and void. If this happens, where does it keep our fight against corruption in Nigeria?
Well, it goes down the drain completely, because despite the fact that we are not satisfied with the activities of the EFCC, but to come out and say, for example, EFCC stands dissolved, then the next thing is they will now face the ICPC also, maybe and the Code of Conduct Bureau. But all of these bodies have jurisdiction and they have their own purposes. Look at the ICPC, for example. The ICPC is underfunded, seriously underfunded. And there I say they're deliberately underfunded by government to make it ineffective and inefficient. So if we don't have a body like EFCC, despite the fact that they are performing very poorly, that will be extremely dangerous, because the ICPC does not have what it takes to do what the EFCC is doing presently with all their shortcomings. It will be a great disservice to the nation for the judiciary to make that pronouncement that the establishment of the EFCC is illegal and therefore null and void.
All right, finally, now, what's your take on all of this? What are your expectations from this that is happening? What are you expecting from, the court ruling and the back and forth between the EFCC and the governors? What are your expectations and predictions towards this?
Well, if I just hope that it's even so difficult to know what to say about this, your question, because I would wish that the judiciary would do the right thing, by telling these governors that despite the inadequacies or loopholes found in the law, there's no how we can declare the establishment of the EFCC illegal. They know how to manipulate the law. The judiciary knows how to manipulate the law. Let them equally manipulate the law and ensure that the EFCC is left intact. They have what is called political judgment. Let them do political judgment in this case, so that the EFCC remains where it is, and then we can now work on reforming the EFCC. But to declare it illegal is like a state where there is no police and there is no law enforcement. You can imagine all the pickpockets and thieves and the armed robbers, what will happen. All the kidnappers in a state or in a country where there is no soldiers, no army, no police, none of this law enforcement. What do you think is going to happen? These governors will close their eyes, ears, mouth, and nose and go after all our public resources if there's no EFCC. So if it takes manipulating the law, forgive me for even suggesting this absurd thing, to make sure that the EFCC survives, let the judges do so. Let them bring out a political statement that will ensure the survival of EFCC so that the situation doesn't become worse than it is already.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sunday Amos, from Adamawa there. Thank you very much for joining us on the show and sharing your thoughts with us.
It's always a pleasure.
All right, that was Sunday Amos, an anti-corruption campaigner there, joining us all the way from Yola State, talking about the suit that was filed against the EFCC by, the state's governors, 16 governors, challenging the legality of the EFCC and, wanting it to be looked into. And from where he's coming from, it's quite worrisome, because if this is done, what then does it have to say about the fight against corruption? Like what Sunday Amos said, he said if the governors truly have interest in fighting corruption, they should rather open up, to strengthen the EFCC by amending loopholes, rather than pinpointing loopholes and, wanting to bring the EFCC down. No doubt the Nigerians have questioned the EFCC and their intentions, but it doesn't mean that, it's good to have something there to fight corruption. If these governors are coming out to sue the EFCC, then the EFCC must be doing something that is pinching them somewhere. Well, we watch and we see how all of this will play out in the long run. Well, we've come to the end of this discussion segment.